All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Renew Your Finance. We got everybody here, so we got a great topic for tonight. We're going to be discussing renewing your mindset as far as when it comes to finances. So we're going to be discussing um, what are some of your thoughts about when it comes to finance. You know, what are your thoughts when someone says being debt free? You know, and what are some of the habits that you have seen in yourselves that you think are causing you not to be able to be debt free, or different mindsets. And we'll talk about some of the different shifts in mindsets that we're subconsciously not aware of. So, uh, so with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, Rondell, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so let's recap where we been and where we're going to, or where we're currently at this evening. So we first started off with our first session talking about the why. And what I mean by that is why we're doing what we're doing in regards to taking this journey to be debt free. And a lot of us that are with us tonight, and some of us who are not with us tonight, gave us their definition of what their why was, and why their mind was getting out of the military, trying to make sure that I'm not sitting up here and navigating or tripping over life as I become a civilian. Adrian and Deshonda had their why, where they looked at it and they have a large number of debt, and they were just trying to wrap their minds around, why are we carrying this so much debt and what can we do about it? And then from that standpoint of the why, we transitioned in the following week. We talked about the budget. Now we also talked about the negative aspects of when someone says budget, and obviously a lot of us has grown up in societies or environments where when we heard the word budget, some of us on this channel or some of us within our circles that we call our close circles hear the word budget, you think you're in trouble, or because you got to be on a budget,
Right.
or a budget has a negative connotation to it because why do I have to be on a budget? I work hard, I put in 40 plus hours a week, you know. I need to use that old biblical scripture, I need to enjoy the fruits of my labor. I don't need to be on a budget.
Right.
And or we look at budget as a something that's restricting, that's keeping you to enjoy life of some sort. And then we took a look at some videos that broke down what a budget is by Anthony O'Neill. So Adrian and I, over the week or so, we've been discussing, and we think it's very important for us to, before we get into the technical aspects of that path that we're talking about, going down that road, becoming debt free, the seven baby steps that he and I are on that journey, or I'm still on that journey. He's at the end of that journey. We want to start looking at everyone's mindset, because what I've come to find out during this journey is that if your mindset is not renewed, or your mindset is not geared or conditioned to the journey that you're about to go in, it's almost like boot camp. Before I can ever become an airman and be able to do the things that I was going to do in the United States Air Force, I had to go through boot camp first. And one of the biggest things, most people are like, oh, you did push-ups, pull-ups, you shot a rifle, blah, blah, blah. No, the military actually change your mindset to be a military man or woman in order to take that fight to the enemy. And our enemy is debt, and conquering that debt by becoming debt free. So Adrian and I, over the course of a week or so, during my drives to work in the morning or late afternoons, we really stepped back and said, look, we do know that if we do not look at this thing called a mindset, or our mindset, and really consider how changing that mindset will have a greater effect on the journey that we're going to travel, if we don't discuss that and get to a baseline like we did in basic training, we will find ourselves back at square one, or
Right.
better yet, worse than square one, because it's
Yeah.
almost like an addict. When you
Yeah.
come go cold turkey off of something that you're used to be addicted of, and then you find yourself, you fall off the wagon, you end up going back into that environment harder than it was the first time. So we want to take this time to talk about our mindsets, how we can change those mindsets, how we can gear our mindsets, fortify our mindset for the journey to come. So I want to
Right.
open up this session with those who are on audience, and if you're not able to speak, you can hit something in our chat room, and we'll read out the question for everyone to see. When it comes down, what is your mindset when it comes down to finances in general? What is your mindset? when it comes down to finances in general. So I'm just going to open up with that general question so we can get the juices flowing, and then we'll continue to dive deeper into this subject. So what is your mindset when it comes down to finance? I'm not talking about your finances. I just don't want to put nobody on the spot, but finances in general. What is your mindset on that?
Yeah, and really, when it's pertaining to debt, like how do you view debt, and how do you view? Because I mean, there's a reason that you all are here with us tonight, because you have a desire to want to, I assume, to be debt free, or else you probably wouldn't be here. So we just want to open that up to the floor and see what how you guys feel, and what's your thoughts about becoming debt free. Do you think it's something that's attainable? Or what are some things you think is going to hinder you?
Hi, this is Suzanne.
Hey.
Well, I can say that becoming debt-free is certainly a big goal of ours. I think it's super important.
Yes.
And I think that we do believe that we can be debt-free.
Yes.
I think maybe there was one time where we did think, oh my God, it seems impossible, but
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I do feel and believe that with discipline and with the right mindset,
yes,
and the right tools, that we can be debt free.
Okay, good.
Debt to me is a weighted worry on my shoulder. Let's put it that way, and it's something that I constantly carried around for years. You find yourself thinking that you're in a good spot, but my nights will be restless because I was thinking about some debt. At one point in time, I had 2 mortgages at one point in time because I was stationed in another state, Missouri, and then now I'm living here in Virginia. And I would tell you, if I didn't rent out that place, that was something that I had to contend with. It was a liability that I didn't know how to properly handle. So I have a negative connotation when it comes down to debt. I always thought I was going to have debt, to be truthfully honest with you, because I was taught that you're going to have 2 debts in life. That's what it was taught to me. You're going to have a car payment, and you're going to have some type of rent or mortgage payment, because you got to have something to drive and you got to have something to live in. Mm-hmm. And I was always taught that. But I was not taught about credit card debt at all. And I had found myself over my course of my career in the military, being in a number of debt when it comes down to credit card. We had student loan debt. I didn't know about student loan debt. No one taught me about grants and Pell grants and stuff like that. What they taught me about is College Foundation, which was a Fannie Mae or whatever those student loan places that you student loan. So I always believe most of the people in my family, they die with debt. So I figured inherently I was going to do the same thing, that when I pass away, I'm going to leave some type of debt here, and not having any heirs, I wouldn't know where that debt come from, or where it would go, or would it go to a sibling or whatever. But I always thought that I'm going to die with debt.
Yeah. It's Rohan.
Hey, Rohan.
Hey, I think for me, I don't like owing nobody anything. Like, I guess that's how I was raised. Right. I hate being in debt, honestly.
Okay.
But like Rondell, I think one of the things that I suffered from, out of all of my siblings, because I'm the youngest one, by the time I got ready to go to college, I ended up having to take out again like student loan, but not having anybody that would sit me down and go, hey, there are other options. And I think that's one of the things that I missed out on being. And so for us, that's where our biggest debt is right now, is again, just us dealing with student loans, no car notes, all of that stuff is taken care of. And so it's just, our student loans is like the weight. And sometimes it feels like, man, you're standing in the middle of an ocean is what I describe it as, standing in the middle of the ocean with a bucket, trying to bail it out. You know, and as much as I hate every bit of it, like, man, it seems like I can't get to the end of it.
Right.
You know, and so there are times it feels debilitating and stressful. And like Ron says, the whole idea of just knowing, I think for me, that's the one thing I think that sits right in the back of my head.
Can I ever get over
this? Will we ever get through this? Right. And there are days I'm like, I'm not worried about it. I know we're going to push through. We're going to be fine and we're going to get through it. But there are days it just feels, but my mindset, honestly, I mean, I guess it would be, I hate being in debt to anything or to anyone.
Oh, that's good.
especially on the financial aspect.
Right. Okay. Well, that's exactly what why we started this whole thing, because you know, having a community with people that have the same mindset. So when you start getting discouraged, and you can have someone that can help encourage you and help push you, you know, through that, help you get through that rough patch when you feel like the weight is too heavy. So that's what, you know, we really wanted to put this community together to give you that thing. And like I said, the baseline for this is that mindset that's saying that, okay, now we're here, we've got debt, so now what are we going to do about it? The first thing with the mindset that we got to have is that we're not going to accumulate debt. You got to draw that line in the sand that says, okay, from this point forward, I'm not borrowing any more money. So it's almost like you're in a hole, and if you continue to borrow money, you're digging the hole deeper instead of getting yourself back to ground level to where you can actually start building a solid foundation and start going in an upward direction and stop going, you know, down or backwards. So,
but what you're saying, Adrian, is countercultural. I mean, would you agree, people?
Oh yeah.
Because culture teaches us to loan our way out of debt.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or to borrow our way to a better lifestyle. Well, I mean, what do y'all think about that? That the society that we live in, and what Adrian just said is countercultural to the society that we live in, that tells us that in order to have a lifestyle that you want to attain, you have to borrow yourself. You have to borrow to that type of lifestyle. Do you believe that's true, that you have to borrow to that type of lifestyle, or that lifestyle is attainable without borrowing any more money? I'll just open that up, because I'll be honest with you. I bought a new car when Tracy's up here, Adrian's up here. We're missing Avery tonight. When that brother over there, Tracy, got a new TV, Adrian will go get a new TV. When Adrian go get a new TV, and I'm stationed in South Carolina. Now, I can't afford the TVs that brother over there, Tracy, had, because he had a 55-inch, and then Adrian had the 55-inch, and then Avery got frustrated, had a 55-inch. We all had Xbox, at least we was on the playing field of that. But I had a 32. And so, and so, I didn't have the money saved up, because literally I had $300 in my bank account. You know what I did? I went straight out to Best Buy and got a Best Buy card and swiped that joker, because society tells me if I want to be on the level of these two gentlemen that's on the channel, I'm going to have to go into debt. But do you believe that we can still have that lifestyle without being in debt?
Yeah. I think it comes to being content. Like in that instance, I think that the 55-inch TV that you desired could be yours, but at that point in your life, you had to be content with the 32-inch until, you know, it was in season for you to get that 55-inch. Nobody never said you couldn't get that 55-inch, but it wasn't your season right now. Things weren't in place for you to get that 55-inch television.
So what are your thoughts on that, Charlotte? Because I see your mic is hot now. And what are your thoughts on about society is telling us that the only way we can live the quote unquote American dream, we have to borrow our way to that dream?
I think it's a loaded question, because a lot of it is what you learn, what you live and what you learn, and what you're taught. Until you're taught better, you don't do any better. You don't do better until you learn better. So, you could be in a culture, like we talk about culture, or just like you talk about being in the military. Certain cultures that you go into, that's a culture by itself. You were trained to believe in who your enemy was. And so just like now, it's like you're reteaching your brain to learn outside of the box of what you've been taught. Your parents, when you talk about finances are just like your health. Nobody wants to talk about their health. You're not going to come to me and tell me about your health. You're not going to come to me and talk to me about your finances. This is a group that is very transparent in the conversations, because of the mindset of transforming your mind into something else. But when you look at some of these other things, as far as what you were taught from your parents, or other people that you have come in contact with, until you come in contact with someone that tells you, hey, you can do this differently. Let me show you. You're not going to do anything any different. You can be brainwashed to believe exactly what you believe. And that's where you're going to stay until you come in contact with something else that's going to teach you something different.
That
So
is
just like the principles of Christ, you have been a Christian for how long and have been taught this principle, and the principle has been right there in front of your face. But until you have come in contact with something else that has shown you step by step, hey, hey, brother, this is the way you can go, and this is what you can do to get there. But this is what God was talking about. You know, you're not going to go in that direction until something comes in contact with you to change your mindset, to help you, to lead and guide you that direction. So I guarantee you, every one of us probably has been taught something different. You know, just like you made a comment of what kind of debts you're gonna have in your life. You know, we've heard all kinds of comments. Well, you're gonna be in debt. You're gonna always owe something. That don't mean that you gotta owe. You know, that don't mean that you gotta owe.
right.
But that's what their mindset is. That don't mean I
It's
gotta
normal.
believe that.
Yeah,
Right.
it's normal. It's
And that,
nothing. Yeah,
you got to
And
change the norm. You got to change the narrative. You have to change the norm.
Romans 13:8 tells us to owe no man anything but to love one another. Now, it's not
Right.
necessarily talking about, finances or anything, but it is included in there.
right.
Right.
And,
Just like when we talk about prosperity, you think that people are just talking about money. They're not just talking about, God is not just talking about money. He's talking about prosperity in general. He could be talking about your health. He could be talking about your finances. He could be talking about some of everything about you prospering, period. But, it's your mindset and what you're choosing to believe. And so that's what this group is all about, which is great because it's talking about transforming your mind and helping you to understand which direction you can go in and actually thinking outside the box of the norm that you have learned to believe in and when it comes to debt. So
Yeah. Because like I said last week, I up until that coworker asked me had I ever heard of Dave Ramsey, I had never even considered being debt free unless I was, in my older years and everything has been paid off, mortgage has been paid off. I never even thought about it as a goal or a possibility because being in debt is we're trained to, 0% financing. We're trained, they advertise the car loans, as long as you can make the payments and as long as you have a high credit score, you're doing well in society's view of finances. But that's in our small circle. But the wealthy people, the people that actually build generational wealth, they don't deal with debt to that extent. They don't spend, 80% of their or up to 80 to 100% of their paycheck every pay period. They save at least 50 to 75% of their paycheck, and they live off of 25%. That's because they're putting the other in assets that are growing, but we weren't taught that. We're taught that as soon as we get an increase, we already spent it on something else that we had our eye on that was that we ain't even you ain't got the money yet, and we already went out and bought a new car and got a new payment and allotted that extra that God just blessed you with to something else. Instead of looking at it from the standpoint of contentment, and now God has blessed you with this increase. Let's use this increase to get you out of the mess that you got in before. Because we're in this microwave society and we are impatient. We don't want to move in season with what God has for us.
You used the word twice now, maybe 3 times. You used the word contentment.
Mm-hmm.
What do we mean, guys, when we're talking about contentment? I mean, he done used it like 3 times.
Yeah.
How can we be content? How can we be content and utilize that tool of contentment to move us forward to being debt free?
Well, contentment is really being within your means, what's in your household, and not being concerned what's in your neighbor's household.
Exactly.
And I don't really need to keep up with what the other person is doing.
Yeah, the Joneses.
I can get what that person has if I desire it, but it'll have to be in my time.
Right, that's key. Mm-hmm.
And that's just contentment and knowing where what we can handle and what we should be responsible for, because we are to be responsible for what the wealth God has given us.
Exactly.
We'll have responsible for that. He didn't give us the wealth for it to, as you say, be irresponsible with it. And that's basically how that works. But a lot of times we are irresponsible. I've been irresponsible with it, and you know the kind of funds that I've made,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been irresponsible for it. I do, now that I'm older and wiser.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so that's just being content. What that means.
Yeah.
And for me, with being content, well, for many people, it means not being stressed.
You
know,
elaborate on that, Deshonda. What do you mean by not being stressed?
So not being in over your head about it, not having to worry about, how to make ends meet. For most people, as long as I can pay these bills. And, going back to, being debt free was an end goal, but not a way of life. And it needs to be a way of life. Like every month, everything that you do is about being debt free, but it's also the end goal has now changed. The end goal is now being content, being happy, being stress free, and having that freedom that comes with it.
Right.
Okay. Hey, man. I mean, I would tell you that contentment has kept me from getting in a lot of other troubles when it came down to it's actually one of the cornerstones in my when it comes down to my mindset. I used to be very discontent about some things. I grew up very humble, didn't wear the nicest clothes always, or even had the nicest shoes. Some shoes I wore in my lifetime, I had holes in it, went to school in with holes in my shoes. And when I got to a certain age, or, you start making your own money, you're thinking like, look, I done, did this and I don't want this, and I didn't have the advantages or had some of the things, the niceties that I had, which that was discontent. I was really discontent with a lot of stuff that God has blessed. And when I look back on it now, God has kept me through the whole thing, even in my discontent. But he made me realize that I can be content in anything. And even on this journey that I found myself as now as one of my cornerstones, I'm so content with everything that I have that I don't know how to be discontent, so to speak, with anything else, because I look at it this way. I never had it before. So I can't say, I wish I had that. Well, this is the first time me ever having it. And so therefore I'm content with what I got now. Therefore, I don't have the yearning. And I use that as one of my fuels or one of my cornerstones to keep me disciplined, so to speak, when it comes down to, the stewardship. That's what we like to call it. The stewardship of the resources that God gives us, that I can properly manage those resources that he gives us. And one of the things I use contentment as my motivator, or as my source of fuel to prevent me from going in there. But what are some other ways that we can utilize, other tools that we can grasp on to change our mindset when we're going, and to keep us fueled and keep us energized when we're going towards that path that we're all going to be on, is becoming debt free? What are some other things that we can grasp on too?
Yeah, I also going to say, we are commanded to be content with what we have. So, I might come at you a different way and bring everything from the Bible, sense on it, because that's basically where I've been most of my life. So, I might throw the Bible verse at you based on, whatever words y'all bring up, and tell you that it's already been written. And, so you may not have seen it in there, but it's already in there. And, and we know basically everything that we need to make it through life is already in the Bible.
Oh yeah. So, because we got plenty of scriptures that touch on each one of these topics. That we're talking about in concerning the debt, and we're gonna be hitting on those as well, and lining this up exactly with His Word, because once He gets involved, He kind of speeds this process up in ways that you couldn't imagine. So.
Absolutely.
I think one thing that I was gonna say was, a lot of times, as you're growing, I'm going to say not necessarily growing up, but just different levels of maturity, because you learn as you get older what things are really important.
Right.
And that's a big part of changing your mindset, because, you know, even I have, you know, some people that I know, and even me trying to ask them, I guess for this journey has kind of been brewing for me, because I've been working with like the creditista and the budgetista, and you know, so like the last couple years, I've been kind of, you know, like slowly working kind of towards this. But you know, it's like at one point you're working on your credit score, or you're working on it. It's like, well, what difference does it make if you're in debt? Like, you know, it's just crazy. But I just think it's just the level of maturity of the things that are important. And hitting on something that you said before, Rondell, and I was speaking with Adrian about this yesterday. It was like, growing up, you are always like, I'm going to have either car payment, I'm going to have a car payment, and I'm going to be paying rent or a mortgage. So it's like things that you learn as you go and grow, and you learn to look at those things and say, no, those things are not, you know, getting a pair of shoes or whatever, like that's not important to me anymore. I don't care about that, you know? So I think sometimes it can be, go ahead.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, and you know, we're not saying we're not against people, you know, getting things for themselves, but I think once you get on this, and you know, when people open up your eyes and they take the blinders off, and you can clearly see things for what they are, you can say, okay, where I've been working all these hours and I've been doing all this stuff, but I have nothing to show for it but debt, and I'm continuing to make these payments. I'm continuing to lose my freedom. I have to continue to get up and go to a job that I hate every single day because I need that paycheck for this job to provide. And so I can't really do a job that I really like to do because it may not pay as much as this job because I got these obligations, you know. So, but yeah. Rohan, Suzanne, did y'all want to chime in on we were talking about contentment and how that plays into you know, our desires to go into debt, you know, to keep up with what we may see other people doing, and you know, or you know, and just adding to it because we don't want to wait on God. We're praying to God for something, but it's not moving fast enough, so we use debt as a leverage to speed up that blessing.
Is it a blessing though?
No, that's what we think because you see it on Facebook, you see it anywhere.
I agree.
You know, they'll say, "Look, God blessed me with this new car," but this new car came with an $800 car payment. You know, so I don't really think that's a blessing. You know.
Oh, absolutely not. Right. I earlier when we were talking, I kind of smiled at my wife because we were just in there speaking to some friends of ours earlier on what culture does to you, right? Yes. So I was born in Jamaica, raised, and again, not very materialistic. Came here when I was about 11 years old and started middle school. And I was just sharing with them just my experience that literally shifted my entire mindset on things in terms of, again, for me, hey, my parents didn't have it. We went to Payless, they bought us shoes. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world because it was a new pair of shoes. Only to go to school, right? Yeah. Again, starting school here in America. And man, it was all about what you wore. It was about the brand that you wore. And so I got laughed at in school about a lot of that stuff for a long time, about the kind of clothes that I wore or the kind of shoes that I wore, because they weren't brand name. And so as a child, as I got older, the minute I started working at 14 years old, I was like, no, I don't ever want to have that experience again. Right. So it's the whole mindset now, it shifts. And I'm like, now I want the newest Jordans. I want the newest Nikes. I want the latest brand name clothes. And so that becomes like a snowball effect. And before you know it, you know, I want the newest car. I want the best of whatever, and no matter what it costs. And America, again, I only want to say America because it's across the board these days, no matter where you are. But the world teaches us to go after more. And the church has done us a lot of injustice where a lot of that stuff is concerned too, because we preach blessings in terms of wealth and prosperity and owning things more than we're concerned about the soul aspect of people's lives on some levels. But again, just the whole pursuit after things really messes us up. And so we struggle again with being content with what we have because the world is always showing us the next thing. The newest iPhone is going to come out. The next BMW is coming out. The next Acura is coming out. The next whatever is coming out. And so, you know, we always, again, it messes with us mentally in terms of, again, just being, like you said, as the word says, that we should, whatever state we find ourselves in, just to be content, right? We don't like delayed gratification, as it were.
Right.
Because everything should be instantaneous. We want stuff now. I don't need to wait. I'd rather have it now. And then by the time you get it now, you owe for it, like we talk, like you guys say. And then the new thing come out and you still haven't paid off the one that you currently have. So you go trade it in or you give it up to get the newer thing. And now you have an even bigger payment and it just keeps going. But I agree with you guys, like 100% that the ability to be content, to be satisfied. Again, if we just learn to close our eyes, I guess, to some of the things that we're seeing. So I'm like, man, I'll limit my television intake because I don't want to see that commercial. And that's what's going to mess with you. Right. I don't want to know about the newest iPhone. I don't care about the new car that's coming out. I'm good with the one I got. We just learn to close our eyes off to some of those things. I think we'd be all right.
I also wanted to add, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead,
Well,
Suzanne.
Yeah, I just saw one of my friends post and he mentioned God doesn't measure success the same way that you do. And I thought that was interesting based on what we're talking about, because a lot of times we think success is having these material things, when success could be really just being content with where you are, the fact that you have all you need, being content with the achievements, you know, the fact that, oh, today I didn't spend all, you know, this big money I got, I didn't spend it on something frivolous. You know, if we could celebrate or think about where our focus is, you know, what are we prioritizing? You know, what is truly a success for my family? What does that look like for my family? Instead of comparing that to everyone else. And success for us could be, wow, we paid off. We don't have a car payment. I mean, that's success, you know? Not that I don't have the latest car, the latest version or whatever that is. And so we should feel that if I can be content with where I am, that is success for me.